Once upon a time, nestled in a valley cradled by towering mountains, there lived a boy named Leo. From a young age, Leo was different. While other children would shy away from the dark woods or the shadow of the highest peak, Leo would run towards them, his heart thrumming with a fearless beat. His courage wasn't just a trait. It was a legend whispered throughout the village. He was the boy who calmed a startled bull with a gentle song, the boy who retrieved a lost kite from the highest branches of the ancient oak, the boy who never, ever seemed to feel fear. The villagers admired him, their eyes wide with a mixture of awe and concern. "That boy has the heart of a lion," they'd say. But his grandmother, a woman whose wisdom was as deep as the valley itself, would often watch him with a furrowed brow. "Courage is a fire," she'd murmur to herself. "It warms you, but it can also burn you if you get too close." Leo's reputation grew with him. He saw courage as his greatest strength, a muscle he had to flex every day. He started seeking out dangers not to help, but to prove his bravery. He dared himself to cross the roaring river on a single slippery log during a storm. He'd climb the treacherous cliffs just to feel the wind whip his hair at the very edge. Each successful dare fed his courage, making it grow bigger, wilder, and more untamed. He began to mistake recklessness for bravery and caution for weakness. He stopped listening to the advice of the elders, their warnings sounding like a foreign language he refused to understand. One day, a traveler arrived in the village, speaking of a rare luminous flower called the star petal. It was said to grow only on the most perilous, inaccessible ledge of the highest mountain, the one they called the Sky Piercer. Legends claimed the flower held a magic that could grant a single wish. While others heard a tale of impossible beauty, Leo heard a challenge. This was it. The ultimate test of his courage. Conquering the Sky Piercer and retrieving the star petal would cement his legacy forever. His grandmother pleaded with him. "Leo, my dear boy," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "The mountain is not a beast to be tamed. It is a powerful, ancient spirit. It demands respect, not defiance. True courage is knowing when to turn back." But Leo's ears were deaf to her words. He saw her wisdom as fear, her concern as doubt. He packed a small bag, scoffing at the villagers who offered him ropes and proper climbing gear. "I have my courage," he declared, puffing out his chest. "It's all the equipment I need." He set off at dawn, leaving behind a village holding its collective breath. The initial climb was easy, familiar territory for Leo. He navigated the lower slopes with the agility of a mountain goat, his confidence soaring with every upward step. The sun warmed his back, and the world below shrank into a patchwork of green fields and tiny houses. He felt invincible, a king ascending to his throne. But as he climbed higher, the mountain began to reveal its true nature. The gentle slopes gave way to sheer rock faces. The friendly breeze turned into a biting, hostile wind that clawed at his clothes and tried to push him from his precarious holds. The air grew thin, and each breath became a struggle. His muscles, once tireless, began to ache with a deep, burning fatigue. His hands, raw and bleeding from gripping the sharp rocks, trembled uncontrollably. For the first time in his life, a strange, cold sensation crept into Leo's heart. It was a feeling he didn't recognize, a chilling whisper in the back of his mind. It was fear. He pushed it down, angry at his presence. "I am Leo, the fearless," he shouted into the wind, his voice immediately snatched away by the gale. He forced himself onward, driven by the pride that had become his master. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, he saw it. Perched on a narrow ledge, just as the traveler had described, was the star petal. It glowed with a soft ethereal light, its petals shimmering like captured starlight. It was the most beautiful thing he had ever seen. But it was on a ledge separated from him by a wide, terrifying chasm. A single rotten-looking vine was the only bridge. The old Leo, the Leo from yesterday, would have leapt across without a second thought. But this Leo, the one whose hands were shaking and whose lungs were screaming for air, hesitated. He looked down into the swirling mist that filled the chasm. an abyss that promised nothing but a long, final fall. The fear he had been ignoring now roared to life, a tidal wave crashing over him. It wasn't just a whisper anymore. It was a deafening scream. He was paralyzed. His courage, which had grown so large and unwieldy, had finally met an obstacle it couldn't conquer. It had carried him this far, but now it left him stranded, alone on the side of a merciless mountain. He thought of his grandmother's words, "True courage is knowing when to turn back." He had seen it as cowardice, but now, clinging to the cold rock, he understood. It was wisdom. It was survival. Humiliation and shame washed over him, followed by a profound sense of clarity. His quest wasn't about courage. It was about ego. He had been so busy proving he was fearless that he forgot to be smart. With a heavy heart, Leo turned away from the glowing star petal. The journey down was even harder than the climb up. Every step was an admission of defeat, but also a step towards a new kind of strength. He used the last of his energy not to fight the mountain, but to work with it, finding safer paths, respecting the loose rocks, and listening to the warnings of the wind. When he finally stumbled back into the village, he was not the same boy who had left. He was bruised, exhausted, and empty-handed. But he was also humbled, and in that humility, he found a new, quieter form of courage. He walked straight to his grandmother and hugged her, tears streaming down his face. "You were right," he whispered. Leo never sought out danger for sport again. He learned that courage wasn't about the absence of fear, but about acting despite it, with wisdom and purpose. He became the one who would organize rescue parties, using his knowledge of the mountain to guide others safely. He became the one who would teach the village children not to be reckless, but to be prepared. He found that the greatest courage wasn't in conquering a mountain, but in conquering his own pride. The boy who grew too much courage had finally learned how to carry it just right.